Hello and thank you for joining us. A federal investigation is underway in the deadly midair collision between an American Airlines passenger jet and an Army helicopter near the nation's capital. 60 passengers and 4 crew members were on board American Eagle Flight 5342. 3 soldiers were on board the Army Black Hawk helicopter at the time of the crash. Investigators believe there are no survivors. A source familiar with the investigation tells CBS News both plane black boxes have been recovered and are on their way to an NTSB lab. The 2 aircraft collided around 9 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday night. Transportation officials say the passenger jet was following a standard flight path heading into Reagan National Airport. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Army helicopter had been conducting a routine training mission. CBS News has also learned there was only 1 air traffic control worker managing both helicopters and planes, a job normally done by 2 people. Earlier, President Trump, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and Secretary Hegseth spoke about Wednesday's crash.
This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions.
What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. And when Americans take off in airplanes, they should expect to land at their destination. That didn't happen yesterday. That's not acceptable.
The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. I think the president.
We're learning the identities of some of the victims, including Russian figure skating coaches Vadim Nomov and Zhenya Shishkova. They were on their way back from a training camp in Wichita, Kansas. CBS News correspondent Skyler Henry joins us now from Arlington, Virginia. Skyler, recovery efforts have ended for the night. What progress was made and when will the search resume?
Yeah, well, we know that authorities were able to recover 40 bodies. They say that they will continue to try to look for more tomorrow once the sun comes back up. They believe that some may still be in the tail part of the fuselage in the wreckage in the Potomac. But they also have their challenges, as well as the conditions in the river are increasingly dangerous and treacherous for those crews who have been working around the clock to try to not only recover those bodies, but also get to the bottom of the wreckage in and of itself. We heard from the NTSB today, who held a press conference to talk about what plans they have in terms of moving forward with this investigation. They say that they are in the preliminary stages of this process, but there are already specific groups within this investigation that will meticulously comb through all of the facts in terms of figuring out how this happened. Everything from systems, reviewing the radar and the altitude of both of those aircraft, to human performance, to what happened and who communicated with whom as it relates to air traffic control and the pilots on board those aircraft. They say that they anticipate some results within the next 30 days, but they are working to move quickly and urgently to try to get to the bottom of so many questions.
How long could this investigation take, and how significant is the recovery of these black boxes?
It is certainly significant. Well, we heard from the NTSB earlier today. They had stressed that they wanted to make sure that they worked on the recovery aspect of getting those bodies back to shore as quickly as they could before moving forward with the other parts of the investigation. There isn't as much of a timeline crunch, if you will, as it relates to gathering those black boxes. There's also another aspect of this that is still underwater. There's like a data recovery system that is still underwater. The NTSB chair says that they are also working to try to pinpoint that, because that will also be essential as they continue to work through this investigation. They say that from here, as I pointed out, we could see the first results from their investigation come out within the next 30 days. But we know that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, President Trump, for that matter, also urging some urgency here, because they say that they need to figure out how this happened, why this happened, because, yes, this is a congested airspace, but because so many commercial airlines fly in and out of here, because so many private jets fly in and out of here, and obviously so many military jets fly in and out of here, they're trying to figure out why that routine seemed to come to a halt yesterday.
Skyler Henry, thank you.
You bet.
CBS News Pentagon reporter Eleanor Watson joins us now. Ellie, an Army aviation rep gave an update today saying the pilots on the Black Hawk helicopter were experienced. This is a relatively easy corridor, according to that person. Can you provide more detail on that? And Is it normal for the Army to conduct a training mission like this so close to a busy airport at night?
U.S. officials today said that the crew of this Black Hawk helicopter was very experienced and would have known this route along the Potomac River near the Reagan airport. One U.S. official said that this should not have been a problem because this is a route that is taken regularly on a daily basis. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that the Black Hawk last night was involved in an annual training exercise when it collided with the passenger jet. Now, what's confounding about this is that it's not irregular to see military helicopters along the Potomac near Reagan Airport. That happens all the time. Officials say that the passenger plane was on a standard flight path, and so was the military helicopter. But what happened last night is obviously a tragic anomaly.
You've actually ridden in a Black Hawk helicopter. What is it like, and what is the significance of both the height at which the helicopter was flying and whether they were using night vision goggles?
Black Hawks are one of the preferred modes of transportation for senior Pentagon officials like the defense secretary. The most recent time I was in a Black Hawk was in December with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin when he was visiting Tokyo. And from my experience, the soldiers in the Black Hawk are constantly scanning the horizon, looking at from each side and forward for anything that could be in the way. Now, the elevation you speak of, the flights in a Black Hawk have the best view of the city because they are at a lower elevation. Now, in D.C., the ceiling around the Reagan Airport on that stretch of the Potomac is 200 feet, and that's because it is so heavily congested. That is the ceiling, and what investigators will be looking at going forward is at what altitude was that helicopter flying. You mentioned night vision goggles. We have a little bit of conflicting information from Secretary of Defense Hegseth and President Trump. It's not clear whether they were wearing the night vision goggles last night. Both Secretary Hegseth and President Trump have said that there were night vision goggles on board, but whether they were wearing them, we're not sure. I bring that up only because people have speculated that when you're wearing night vision goggles, it constricts your peripheral vision, and the soldiers on board may not have seen objects in the sky. Army officials today said that these crews are trained specifically to wear night vision goggles, but also scan the horizon. So while it may restrict some vision, they are trained to be able to see throughout the sky.
Eleanor Watson, thank you. CBS News transportation safety expert and analyst Robert Sumwalt joins us now. He's also former chair of the National Transportation Safety Board. Robert, thanks for being here. What's your initial analysis so far?
No analysis at this point. I think it's most important that we allow the NTSB to gather the factual information and then let the analysis phase go from there.
Speaking of that, though, President Trump honed in on the helicopter in a briefing Thursday, seemed to question whether they were in the right place at the right time. What questions do you have regarding that, what we were just talking about with Ellie, the height they were flying at and whether they were wearing night vision goggles?
Well, I think one thing that I'm really interested in is why was the helicopter that close laterally to the arriving airplane? Why was that airplane spaced so that it would arrive at the same point in space as the airplane?
What challenges do pilots face in general in this busy corridor, especially at night?
This airport, I was an airline pilot for 24 years. I've landed at that airport and on that runway many times. I don't think that it's a particularly challenging airport. You certainly have got to be on your toes. It's a little different than most airports, but if you handle it right, it's not a problem at all.
Two sources confirmed to CBS News that one air traffic control worker was managing both the helicopters and the planes in the area. That's usually monitored by two people. How serious and unusual would that be?
Well, I'm really concerned about that. The first accident that I went to as an NTSB board member, we found that there was only one controller on duty. There were supposed to be two. Supposedly, if two controllers would have been there, the accident may not have occurred. So I'm concerned about that. I want to know why this would be the case.
As former NTSB chair, what information can investigators glean from what they recover at the scene, particularly the black boxes the flight recorders, debris, even passenger cell phones?
Yeah, the good question. A lot of people forget about the cell phones. There's some good information that the NTSB can recover from those. The recorders are so important, especially the cockpit voice recorder, because it provides the most direct evidence of what was going on inside of that cockpit.
So even though they may be waterlogged, information can still be gleaned from them.
Absolutely. These recorders were only in less than 10 feet of water, so it's not a problem at all.
What information can be gleaned from passenger cell phones?
Well, in some cases, I've seen hot air balloon accidents where everybody's taking pictures because it's a joyous occasion. Here it's night. I'm not sure that there would be a lot of personal cell phone photos going on at the time, but the board will certainly try and retrieve data from those.
I have to ask you something that's been on my mind since this happened, and I think it's probably on the mind of a lot of people. Is it safe to fly right now?
Absolutely, it's safe, and I want to put it in perspective, and I don't want to sound trite about the disaster that happened last night, but we've gone 16 years without a fatal crash with a major airline, with an airline in this country, with a U.S. airline. I think that says something right there, that there's a lot of safeguards in the system that have kept the system as accident-free as it has been. Yes, there have been close calls, but there's multiple layers of defense that when one error is made, it's caught by another. Obviously, last night, those layers of defense were breached.
Forgive me for being cynical, but 1 in 16 years, that seems prevalent to me. As somebody who flies, as somebody whose loved ones fly, that makes me nervous. And when you say it is safe to fly, but then we hear from the President and Secretary of Defense saying a mistake was made, something happened, and we need to get to the bottom of it. How do you conflate those two?
Well, obviously something did not go properly. I think to say that it's a mistake, let's let the data find out. Let's find out from the data what, if any, mistake was made. But obviously, two airplanes are not supposed to end up at the same place at the same time.
Anything else you want to say?
No, our thoughts and prayers do go out for all of those victims, their families, and their friends.
It's a tragic day. Robert Sumwalt, thank you for your time.
Thank you.